everybody, I'm Toni, and welcome back to Toni's Tack Tips, a channel for the what, how, and why of horsemanship. So today we're going to be talking about how to clean your tack. So let's start with what we're going to need. So the most important thing you're going to need is a bucket of water, a sponge, and some saddle soap. So the other thing you're going to need for your saddle is, if you decide after it's clean to condition it, you'll need some saddle conditioner. This helps to maintain the leather, keep it pliable and soft rather than cracking, especially when it gets wet when you clean it. I love the CWD conditioner. I find that it really helps maintain my leather. The other thing you might need for your saddle is neat's foot oil. So you should oil your saddles about once a month. Ideally after you clean them as well. And it really helps to keep the leather nice and soft and pliable because water actually dries out the leather. A lot of older leather, you'll see it has cracks in it, all that gross stuff. And oiling it regularly, but not too regularly, will help keep that from happening and keep your leather looking fresh and clean. So we're going to start with our bridle. So you should clean your bridles after every ride, regardless. Bridles, especially the bits, can get super gunked up. I don't know if you can see it, but there's all this hay gunk and spit, especially if you use a bit on more than one horse. Bits can get really gross really fast. Bridles also get the sweatiest out of any of the tack, except maybe the girth. And they need a lot of care to make sure that they're soft and comfortable on your horse and will last you a lot longer. So the first thing you want to do with your bridle is clean the bit. So I like to put the reins over my shoulder, then gather the noseband and throat latch up in my hand. That way they don't get in water, because water dries out leather. You take nothing else away from this video. Water dries out leather. Do not get your leather wet. And you're just going to very carefully dip the bit. And I like to kind of jiggle it around a little bit to help dislodge some of that grosser or more stuck on stuff. And then you're going to get your rag. Any kind of rag works just fine as long as it's clean. And then, using your rag, make sure you get off all of the gunk that's on your bit. And if you have a loose ring bit like this one that has bit guards, you really want to make sure you wipe off these bit guards. Spittle and gunk can make them crack, which will make them not last as long and a lot less comfortable on your horse, so they won't actually protect them from bit rubs, which is their whole point. And if you have a loose ring, make sure you spin it around and get all of the gunk, any leather residue off the entirety of the ring, not just the part that's in contact with the horse's mouth. You want this whole thing to be shiny and clean. And if there's particularly hard parts, you can use a nail, just kind of scrape that stuff off. Hard brushes also work pretty well, but make sure that you sanitize them before and after you use them. Okay. Hold on, I'm going I've used this bit on my 6 horses today, so it's quite dirty. Okay, so once your bit is nice, shiny, and clean, then you can clean the rest of your bridle. So take your sponge and dip it in your water, but make sure your sponge is only very slightly damp. You want to wring out as much of that water as possible because, say it with me, water dries out leather. It will break and crack your leather and just it's bad. Then you want to get your saddle soap. I like the glycerin soap. I find that it gets my tack nice and squeaky clean without getting it too sticky. I don't like it when tack soaps get tack so sticky. It bothers me. That's a thing. So anyway, you're going to rub your sponge in your soap and make sure that there's not so much that it bubbles, but enough that you can see and kind of smell and feel the residue. So once it's on there, make sure you're using the soapy side of the sponge and just rub it all over your bridle, and make sure you get the top and the bottom, especially the parts that are in contact with your horse or the parts that are going to get super gross and sweaty. So you want to make sure that you really get in there and get all that sweat and dirt off. And if your bridle isn't a monochrome, so it separates here, make sure you get under and over both pieces of leather. That way you're not missing any spots that could break and fray later on. Make sure you get all your straps. Your soap shouldn't leave bubbles on your tack. If it's left bubbles on your tack, that means that your sponge is too wet, or that you have too much soap and you'll need to get your sponge wet, wash it all out, and start over again. And I like to re-dip my sponge in the water every bridle, or so. Once you're going and you're not seeing this nice sheen, or you start seeing bubbles, then it's time to redo your sponge, get some more soap, and start over. Whenever you have your keepers and your straps, I like to just pull them out of the runner and get under and over this part of leather too. Make sure everything gets back into their keepers. And then you do your rings. Same thing, and you can just pull them through the sponge like that. Make sure you're especially getting the part near the bit, because that's the part that's usually in contact with the horse's neck and it can get really sweaty. And pay special attention to the bit ends of your reins. And whenever you're cleaning your tack, just check and make sure none of your seams are ripping, none of your leather is rotting, and everything is just a nice functional working order. Okay, so our bridle's all clean. So then you're going to tie up the bridle. So I hang it going away from me as though I am the horse and looking at it. You take your throat latch, bring it across the front, loop the reins through it, around the front one more time until you make a nice little figure 8. And then you can either do the buckle or the keepers. I like to just thread it through the keepers so I don't wear out my buckle. And just a nice little 1-2. Nice and secure. And then take your noseband and fold it across the back so that the buckle goes in the front. And then thread that through the keepers as well. And you have a nice wrapped bridle. The reins are even length, everything is clean, and the noseband is nice and tucked away. Okay, so now that our bridle is nice and clean, we're going to clean our girth. So girths are the other part of tack that you need to clean every ride regardless. This video is specifically about leather girths. Please don't do this to your fleece girths. That will just not end well. So if your girth is leather, you're going to use the exact same stuff that you used on your bridle. So you just want to rub up and down with that soapy side of the sponge. You really especially want to pay attention to the edges of the girth. These oftentimes get missed, and if you can see it here, there's a whole bunch of sweat residue that hasn't been cleaned off from the last couple rides. So you want to really make sure you pay attention to the edges. Give it a nice little scrub, and if there's jockeys like that, accumulations of dirt and sweat are called jockeys, you can very carefully use your nail to just kind of scrape them off, but you're not going to dig it in. That'll wreck the leather. You want to make sure that you get all of those markings off. And your sponge should leave a nice little sheen, but it shouldn't feel wet to the touch. If it feels wet to the touch, your sponge is too wet, and your water will dry out your leather and crack it. Go back and try again. Okay. So then there's the side that's in contact with the horse. So before I ever put the sponge on it, I'm either going to just take my hand or a brush and just kind of brush it off, because especially during shedding season, this can get covered with dirt and hair and all that gross stuff. But the second I get that a little bit damp with my sponge, the hair is just going to stick to the girth. So before I get it wet, especially getting into these seams here, make sure all that hair is off and it's just any sweat and dirt residue that I can pretty easily get off my sponge. So I can still see enough soap on here that I'm going to keep going, but some girths are large enough that you want to get more soap after each side. And then the exact same thing as the front. Just going to go down the girth, give it a nice scrub, make sure we get all these jockeys, always checking the stitching, making sure nothing's coming loose, nothing's rotting, and that we're getting all the sweat out of there. So then once the main part is clean, you always want to just check the buckles, check the elastic, make sure nothing's broken, make sure nothing's snapped. And if the buckle parts are leather, which oftentimes they are, just give those a little brush off with your sponge. Make sure that they are in nice working order. Okay, nice and clean. Okay, so we have our saddle. So saddles ideally should be cleaned every ride, at least with saddle soap. I'll be honest, I clean mine probably closer to once a week, maybe a little less than that. Don't tell my trainer. So even if you don't clean your saddle every day, make sure that you are regularly checking it, especially when you get on. Just go through, check all your buckles, check your saddle bars, check your saddle Ds, just to make sure that everything's in working order. That's really important. But when you do go to clean your saddle, you can use all the exact same stuff we just used on our bridle and our girth. So same idea, sponge, water, and saddle soap. You put your saddle on a saddle rack on the edge of a cross tie. I have a saddle tee right here that I really love. I got it from Dover Saddlery, which is super helpful for horseshoes. So same exact thing as the girth and the bridle. Whenever I'm doing my saddle, I like to make circles to make sure that the soap doesn't get too rubbed into one place and not rubbed into the other place. So I always start with the seat, and I just make nice circles, get in all those little cracks. Same thing as the bridle and the girth. This is a great time to check your stitching, check your lining. Just make sure everything is in functioning working order. Then move down into your flap. I like to just have one hand under the flap to make sure that I'm actually, cleaning it. And make sure, especially on your English saddles, that you're getting all the way up into and under the skirt. A lot of people tend to neglect cleaning this area. If it cracks around your stirrup bar, that can be a problem. And then make sure also that you don't neglect your stirrup leathers. So make sure you roll them all the way down and clean the whole thing. So I'm starting to get a little bit of white residue here. That means I put a little bit too much water on my sponge. You can see that white residue, so I'm going to go back and start over. And white residue isn't generally a problem. It just means that you're probably putting a little bit too much water on your leather than you want to be. So I always use that as my indicator of, oh, I need to go back, reset my sponge, bring it out a little bit more, and then start over. And if you do have that residue, it's really easy to just wipe off. But it's better if you wipe it off sooner rather than later. If you leave it, it can kind of congeal into this gross, sticky stuff. It gets into your buckles. It's just bad. Especially they like to get into these holes and then never come out. Okay, so back to your stirrup leathers. Make sure you get the inside and the outside. This is a great time to check if your stirrup leathers are even, if they're wearing somewhere they shouldn't be, if they're stretching, or if you have the ones that have nylon in the middle, if the leather is starting to peel off and just exposing the nylon. And whenever I'm doing my stirrup leathers, I always like to just pull them down a little bit so I can get that part that's under the stirrup bar as well. That way I'm not leaving any one part of my stirrup leather uncleaned. I also just undo the buckle, get that part, put it back in there so I don't forget where my stirrup buckle is. That. Get all of that. Make sure you get your billets and always check the stitching up here. A lot of them are just attached to the tree by nylon, but some are attached by leather, and if that starts to rot, that can be a real big problem. And checking how your billets are stretching, if they need to be replaced. Always good habit to get into. That way you can be proactive. And always check your blocks, make sure nothing's too dry or too rotting, etc. And then make sure you do the underside of your saddle too. I see a lot of people get the top so clean and sparkly and totally forget about the underside. This is the part that's in contact, with saddle pads, but it's in contact with the horse. And especially if you're working hard, this can get really sweaty real fast. So make sure that you're giving it a nice clean oil so it's staying hydrated and free from dust and rot. So then you're going to do the exact same thing on the other side. And you can see how there's kind of the sheen left. That actually means that my sponge is just a little too wet. So I'm going to wring it out one more time and add a little bit more soap to make sure that I'm putting soap on my saddle and not water. Because, I hope that you can say it by now, water will dry out your leather. You guys might be able to see a little bit of cracking here. This actually is one of the first places to crack because it never really gets cleaned. It doesn't always get oiled, even if it's always getting compressed because this is where you're sitting. So even if it doesn't seem like a place that you should really, really clean, you should really, really clean. And there you have it. You have nice, clean, conditioned tack. I hope you guys learned something from this video. If you have any questions, please comment. If you have any ideas for future videos or things you want to see or learn, comment below and we'll try to make it happen. Follow me on Instagram at Tony's Tack Tips. Thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe.